Welcome back to the second discussion on the program. This morning, we're looking at EDO 2020 governorship election, which is a matter of weeks away from here. But we want to pay more attention to the need to have violence-free poll in the state and every other state going forward. Just yesterday, INEC chairman was speaking in Nasarawa State where there's a by-election coming, and he was talking about Edo State. And he said, quote and unquote, ugly reports are coming from Edo State threatening violence and so on and so forth. So he's saying that beyond calling a meeting of the parties themselves in general, they want to specifically talk to the campaign councils of the different political parties on the need to forestall violence, watch their rhetorics, and so on and so forth. So if INEC chairman is speaking on that level, then it can only point to the fact that there's trouble brewing, and the earlier we check it, the better for every one of us. Two major political parties are represented on the program this morning. I'll begin from my immediate left. Ahmed Mahmoud is a member of the APC here in Edo State. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Uyi. Good morning, viewers.
Next to him is a former member of Edo State House of Assembly, a lawyer, and a member of the People's Democratic Party here also in Edo State, Barrister Friday Ogiriahi. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my delight to be back here.
Great. I think I want to begin with you off the top of my head. Violence is something I know you are very familiar with as far as our political space is concerned. You had been at the House of Assembly. You had run for elections at least more than once in this state, for example. What has been your experience over time as far as violence is concerned?
Well, let me say that when you talk about violence and Nigeria elections, they seem to be Siamese twins. And another way to describe it is to say that it appears to be a recurring decimal. And why is this so? Because sufficient political will has not been brought to bear objectively, at dealing with it and curbing it. Because if the requisite political will were to be available, I tell you, we will be having elections, in a very civil manner, without looking as if, because when we are preparing for election in this country, it will seem like one is preparing for actual warfare. So I will say that if you want to talk about my own experience, I will tell you that yes, it is not different from what is of common knowledge. Like I said in my earlier statement, I said it is like preparing for warfare. When jobless youths are being mobilized, instead of selling message, people are thinking of how to engage militant youth, actually thwarting the will of the ballot box, as it were. And I will give you one particular instance. In 2015, when I contested to return back to the House of Assembly, it's on record that in a place in my constituency where the former deputy governor hailed from, Rome community, it's on record that all of the PDP members had to flee from that community because of the fear of violence. Because the night preceding the election itself, gunshots were fired at perceived opponents, particularly my own supporters. And they had no option but to run for the community. The same thing replicated itself in Ugo, except that in Ugo, my supporters, PDP members, were more resilient. In fact, they resisted the attack on them. So that has been the pattern. You have heard reports about stockpiling of arms. What is ordinarily what is gun and ammunition? What is that to do with election? Where people are just to go vote and allow the vote to do vote. So when you get flares, security reports, they are people and they are building military youth or how to pervert the system during violence. Like I said, it has taken this long. The people have not taken responsibility. We don't take responsibility. In 2016, we had the government election. A They will report on shooting to start innocent come to vote that day. They do like I said, undermining the process of election. And now coming back to the pyramid, people with responsibility. They are not aware that a single person, for those unions that were committed, we have not had that anybody arrested. We have not prosecuted. And what am I saying? You better that is enjoy. We need to allow to rest that. I believe that we can do better than what we only have. You know, it is not a very good story. We know that even though we are not prepared for this man, the 2020 government election, I hear stories being whether the professional media and the social media, people already mobilizing, spoiling for people using kinds of threats. And we all see a situation where the people party leaders will be above board actually telling the voters, telling them that election is not on. What meaning can you make a situation where people decide to start lions? What make it that?
Let me just a question to continue. You can imagine how there are few individuals who, like say, power arms, for example, to foment trouble, petro violence. Are these individuals bigger than the system? I mean, a country where you have security agencies, for example, where you have the law as well. Is it so difficult to subject these people to this system itself?
Yes. Let me this. But when I address system, yes, I try to refrain myself from partisan condemnation. Or actually being for one party or the other. I make the point clearly that it is the failure of institutions. If people carry out the election day, I met criminals, and then you be described as terrorists.
And I should be
charged. So if there is failure to deal with them, to deal with this election, that failure should be attributed to those who have been allowed to act and they act. I'll tell you again, objective two, that if you look at what has happened since President Muhammad came on board as president, nothing has been done in the area of electoral reforms. Because this thing has to do with electoral reforms.
Well, electoral reforms address violence.
Of course. Let me tell you, we have had reports from commissions that have been set up in the past that touches and are actually recommended that there should be a commission to deal with electoral violence and crime, that beyond the civil aspect that are commonly treated in the normal election tribunal, it has been recommended over time. You want to talk about the Kauna Money report, you want to talk about the waste report, all dealing with recommendations on how we can make our election a lot more credible. Because if you are talking about violence, and violent following the election, you cannot be talking about credible elections. What did we have in Kogi, the last election I had in Kogi? Reported worldwide, a disgrace, a national disgrace, a monumental disgrace of a helpless woman only because she belonged to an opposition party, being locked up in her room, in her house, and the house set ablaze, and she died crying for help. No help came to her. So we are waiting to see the outcome of that investigation, because I'm aware that even Mr. President, did condemn that very barbaric act. So we are there to see the outcome, whether those who did it will actually be made to face the law. Okay. So you see that those who do this thing, they do it with impunity because there's a cover for them by the system. If the system is up and doing and is able to actually place blame squarely, appropriately, without partisan concentration, knowing that when you talk about election, it ought to be a serious business. Serious business in the sense that it is the outcome of that process that will determine how far we can go as a people. So that is why any person that is patriotic, that is a leader, ought not to see this thing as what's it called now, as something that is meant to further the nest or the interest of a particular political party.
Okay, we're going to talk about a number of these issues as we make progress, but let me talk to Ahmed now. The desperation, it's one thing to have the desire to win. Everybody desires to win in any endeavor, but there is also the desperation to win. A lot of persons have said this is what gives rise to violence during elections in this country.
I'm happy you put it that way, Uyi. I want us to frame this conversation properly. We are trying to describe what leads to electoral violence. I believe that's what we are talking about. And let me give kudos to my senior, my leader, Honorable Friday. He's navigating very difficult waters. I agree with him, we can do better. We can do better than Obaseki at this moment. He needs to come out and tell Edo people directly the source of this violence. He's giving an example of Kogi State. Less than a week ago, there was gunfire in the Oba's palace. In the Oba of Benin's palace. The Oba of Benin is one of the most respected monarchs in Africa, if not the world. There was gunfire in his palace. What has Obaseki done about it? You are giving an example of Kogi State.
I gave an example of Roma.
No, Roma is not
Kogi State. That's not wrong. Roma is Kogi State.
You said that
to not give the impression to the public that I only gave an example of Kogi State.
No,
I gave an example of my election. Please allow me to have the floor. Allow me to have the floor. Don't represent me.
Let's be honorable, gentlemen.
I will interject when you are talking.
No, gentlemen, let's be
You gave an
Gentlemen, please, let's take it one at a time. Please, you have your time. Go ahead.
He gave an example of Kogi State.
So you are saying that's bullets?
I said, why are we talking about Kogi State when there was gunfire in Oba's palace?
Which the governor also came to condemn.
Which the governor came. And
the governor came out to condemn that. And he promised that those who were responsible.
Has anybody been arrested? There were video clips that were given of the perpetrators of that crime. Has anybody been arrested? We are talking about Kogi State. The primary responsibility of any government is to protect the lives and safety of the citizens. Edo State government under Obaseki has failed woefully, and that's why he's coming to give examples of Kogi. Let us face the problem in Edo State. The election is going to happen in Edo State. It has nothing to do with Buhari. Now, the election that brought Oga, if you interrupt me again, I will make it very difficult for you.
Please. No, we can have civil conversation, please.
Now, what I'm saying is very simple. We've had series of elections, gubernatorial elections. Let's talk about the one that brought Oshomole to power. Nobody died, to the glory of God. The last election we had here were the same people. Obaseki versus Izeyamu. Nobody died. What is different in this election that we are talking about stockpiling of arms? The difference is that Obaseki is a complete and total failure. And he cannot come out and tell
you cannot call a sitting governor total failure. If you were saying the governor has a lot of work to do in the area of security in particular,
okay, let me rephrase.
We can deal with that. On Friday, we also respond to that.
Let me rephrase so that I can continue what I'm saying.
Please, you have to take back that statement, please.
The administration, I will take it back in my next comment.
Please, by all means, can you take it back?
It's not a total failure.
Okay, thank you.
He's a subjective failure.
Well, that's your opinion, but that's my opinion. Yes,
it's not the opinion of
well, it says a total failure. There are people who
allow me to continue.
You will continue, but you have people who have said the governor has done well in certain
areas. That is their own opinion. Yes. I am speaking for myself.
By all means.
Now, in speaking for myself, this is the agenda of Godwin Obaseki.
Okay.
This is what we should be talking about.
Achieving prosperity.
Yes, he said, I am coming to achieve prosperity for
economic prosperity.
Economic prosperity.
Yes.
These are the issues we should be talking about. Construction of thousands of kilometers of roads in rural areas. Creating 200,000 jobs. Reintegrating some of the failed industries in Edo State.
Yes.
The reason that we are suffering now violence is because this has not been implemented. Edo State people want to know, where is this? Where are these things that he put it? Look, this is a publication from the Vanguard of Tuesday, May the 23rd, 2017. It lists all the streets in Edo State. It asked for, this is pre-qualification for contractors. The question is, how many of these streets have been tarred? This is what we should be talking about.
But the government has never even said he has started on the streets in Edo State.
No,
he has never said that. He has even said.
Read this paper.
There's more work. I can get a copy from you after the show. But for now, let's stay with the discussion.
The qualification is that we want these jobs to be done.
And then you're calling for beads. You're calling for beads.
What I'm asking is, what is the state of these jobs?
But that is what we can stay with the issue of having an election, violence for election.
It's tied in.
Okay.
The reason it is tied in is because
sorry.
When you have nothing to show for 4 years of a mandate, you will start threatening people by damaging their billboards in 5th Junction. we had to call the attention of the police to the fact that vagrants are damaging billboards of opposition.
But we also see the government's billboards being damaged real time.
They let them come out and report. You are damaging when you have nothing to show. You create an atmosphere of discontent, an atmosphere of fear, so that the pertinent questions cannot be asked. And we will insist on asking the pertinent questions. Before we talk about any mega agenda, let us first get the results of achieving economic prosperity in Edo State.
Yes, well, of course. The government will be held accountable by those who voted him into office. That's natural.
Yes.
But you see, when the person of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission expresses apprehension over violence in Edo State, and then goes ahead to say that the campaign councils of the different parties will be invited so they can have a dialogue about how to foster violence or any outbreak of violence as far as this election is concerned. That is not an Obaseki problem. That is party-wide. That goes across board. So let's address it from that standpoint. And then, of course, we can, at some other time, talk about the governor and what he promised the Edo people in 2016.
In his remarks,
yes,
let us be very clear. It's important that we speak truth to power.
By all means, we should.
In his remarks, he specifically mentioned Edo State.
That's the INEC chairman.
Yes, he mentioned Edo State.
And not Governor Obaseki.
Now, in mentioning Edo State, he said he is afraid of the news that he's getting. Just a week ago, Governor Obaseki was shown on TV addressing a crowd of youth and telling them we will meet violence for violence. Now, Obaseki has at his disposal the instruments of state power. And instead of telling the youth we want peace at any cost, he's telling them we will meet violence for violence. Is that a conversation you should be having? Obaseki should be reminded that he's the father of every citizen of Edo State. Some people will vote for APC, some will vote for PDP, some will vote for ANPP, some will not even vote. He is the father of the whole state. He cannot be telling us that he wants to meet violence with violence. He should be preaching peace at any cost, in any fora, and at any time. So I am terribly disappointed that message came from him. And it may be that that's what the INEC chairman saw, and then he had to call. And we are happy that he has called them. Let all of them go to Abuja and let them be warned that nobody's ambition is worth the blood of anybody in Edo State.
Okay, good. At this point, I want to bring Friday Girahi back in here. That video went viral where the governor talked about violence for violence, but some people say there's a context to it, that the governor actually meant for those who want to make trouble, particularly as far as this election is concerned, the state has all it takes to cut them to size, as it were. I mean, using all the necessary available powers and laws. But how do we beat that context in such a way that the average Edoma understands what the message, what the import of that statement was?
Well, first, I didn't need to interject, my friend, but I cannot be seated here and I'll be misrepresented and misquoted. You know, I gave examples, first of my election in Edo State, of how violence were perpetrated, before I now went to Kogi State, talking about election and violence in Nigeria, you know, contextually. So when my friend kept on saying and repeating, I'm talking about Kogi, I was disturbed and I had to react. Having said that, I didn't also know that we were coming here to discuss Obaseki governance. The question you put was very, very clear. And that was about election and about how it can be dealt with. How to cool like patriots. Because I do believe, as with what President Jonathan said, former President Jonathan said, that no citizen's blood is worth his election. I adopt that philosophy, and that has been my style. I am not a man that will be associated with violence of any sort. And it is not okay, let me quickly put it, that we didn't lose people in Oshomole's election. You may find that out as a fact from the Catholic community, where they lost one of their own in an election time somewhere in Edo North. It's a record. There are so many others that are not reported. We must accept these melees as a fact, instead of trying to deny it or try to justify whoever or who is not because of party affiliation and interest. As a matter of fact, if you tell me that anybody should be arrested for for trying to encourage and brew violence, you know, going forward towards this election in Edo State 2020, he should be the candidate of the APC. Why because the man was caught on video and has gone viral, encouraging some youths who have described themselves as tigers and lions to move, not only to, he said, after doing, let me use this word, when you do your unit, you have influence to also go and do some other pro-unit, you move from that unit, you go to another word. What is that? When you know that that one is a recipe for violence.
What did you say they should do?
Listen, my very good friend. The electoral law forbids movement on election day. What is required of you on election day as a voter is go to your unit, cast your vote. If you can wait, you wait for the vote to be counted. Then after that you go home. It is not the law that you have the prerogative to move from a particular unit, they go to another unit, or go to another one. That one is a side statement. It's a very people, but I need to a straight face in my pre-boot on election day. What do you think with my mind? What do you think my nation? Can you control what will be the outcome? No, come to the context of what the context of what I promised to I want us to get that. You're talking about what happened in the Abbas of Benin Palace.
Yes.
Let me tell you, whatever happened at the palace of the Omonoba was something that was quite embarrassing to all Edo-lites. And of course, it is something that has become a sub-point in our electoral history. But it has antecedent. I left APC in 2014. And I know why we left APC. Even with your own candidate. Your candidate today was the head of that movement from APC. And we know why we left. Bordering on very anti-democratic behavior. Refusal to play by the rules by that party.
17 members of the House. Let him finish.
Some time ago, somewhere in Iyamo, the governor was booed, chased out of the house of the former governor, Adam Oshomole, and but for the fact of the presence of security, perhaps the governor and his entourage, including the Oba of Lagos, now that we are talking about respect for monarch, would have been mobbed. And I know, for instance, God forbid, what that would have translated. If the governor were to be a violent man, a man that is disposed to violence, I would have ordered that gunshot be fired into the crowd, and people by now will have another story to tell. Oshomole did that in somewhere. Oshomole did that somewhere in when he ordered that the people that were with him should shoot at a harmless student who were protesting. And you know what would have been? We lost life in that process. So that when we talk about talking truth and speaking truth to power, we must talk with facts. I am not here to make a sense of anybody. I am talking here, like I said, as a patriot, albeit that I'm a member of the political party, which is my right to be. I'm talking about how we can erase this whole thing from our system. So when again, somewhere in Ekpoma or in Esaland, people, you know, whatever was the reason, there were reports of the government being pelted with stones and what have you. Now a day set aside for the flag off of the PDP campaigns, whereupon we expected several visitors to come to state. And it's a part of the routine of such a ceremony to pay a homage and courtesy visit on our royal majesty. This thing was well known to the opposition party. Before you start talking about gunshot being fired or people being injured, you will first talk about what precipitated it. I saw on video where, of course, the bus conveying the governor and the dignitaries, visitors to the palace, were being booed, called all manners of names. It was later after that incident that we also saw reports of people who were showing injuries, bruises, that the people fired them and all that. For me, I will come back to the point I made. If a crime has been committed, people must be made to face the music. Like people must be made to be society. If everything happen untoward, it is not sufficient to make condemnations. You know, so we must bring the fullness of the law. We must bring the on both sides. Whoever was responsible for that crisis, whoever did what and didn't do it, by covert acts and omission, the law must be brought to bear. And whose responsibility is that? It's not the responsibility of the security agencies. Are you not aware that the governor of a state is only in writing the chief security officer, described as chief security officer? When of course he has no command on any of the security agencies. Are you not aware? Is that not a fact? Is that not what we are talking about? So what we are talking about? You now said, oh, the governor said, I will meet violence with violence.
So what was the context?
Well, for me,
yes,
I did not read it to me that he want to personally meet violence with violence. You see, the state can exercise legitimate force
within the ambit of the law.
Within the ambit of the law, to bring sanity to the process, and that is what I talked about earlier. People must be alive to their responsibility. People must be responsible enough. I'm talking about failure. If anybody has failed today, it is the APC that has failed. Not Governor Obaseki. If you know where Obaseki is coming from, how old is Obaseki in PDP today? Something must be for that. When you try to indict this man, you say, oh, yeah, it's a failure. In 2016, you all
for which he apologized and he took it back.
Yes, not by way of trying to put the issues correctly.
You can't put an issue correctly.
The man was up to about let's say 3 weeks ago, a member of your party, the APC, and PDP was calling it a failure. If anything happens, if you have to go by your own, but your party will calling it a failure. Please, if you have to go by your own assessment of this man, I say, as a man who understands how party politics work, how, of course, when it is an ideal expectation that when a candidate emerges on the platform of a party, that candidate becomes the product of the party. And if that product you are not saying is a failure, it therefore automatically translates to the fact that it is your party that has failed. For me, if they continue on that line of trying to campaign as it were,
yes,
to say this man is a failure, I tell you, it is not Obaseki that has failed. It is the party that has refused and failed to do the right thing that has actually failed.
I want us to, as much as possible, avoid calling names, throwing, casting aspersions.
Asking
as
to
far as the individuals and the parties themselves are concerned. Please, but I want to ask you something now. Still stay with our focus on this discussion, which is the governor of a state, not just Obaseki, in Edo State, for example.
Yeah.
Governors across this country, they proudly, with a sense of prestige, say, I'm the chief security officer of the state. They say that's in principle. I mean, that's what we say.
Yes.
I'm looking at the reality. In the reality, that's in principle, it's not in practice. But even when a sitting governor, knowing all of the reality that you can only be, you're only the chief security officer of your state in principle, and then you still come out to say you are the chief security officer of the state. Yeah. To what extent are you able to deliver leadership on that front?
Well, let me first go back a bit to the statement that was credited to Mr. Governor.
Yes.
He actually said something like, for those that want to perpetrate violence, I wish them well.
No, that's not what he said.
But he also said that.
He said that before he said the violence.
For those that want to perpetrate, I wish them well. You know, but coming to the point about the governor being the chief security officer in principle, you know, it's one of the problems we have to contend with in this country. Where in fact, when I was a member of the House of Assembly, at an informal meeting, Comrade Adam Oshomole sounded that helplessness when he was trying to say, when you talk about real power, he was talking about, he said, real power, you know, when you have somebody like the President of America who can command troops and all that, then you want to talk about him that is an ordinary governor that cannot even command civil defense or vigilante. He said, like I said, it was an informal discussion. Right. I will not provide. But again, you are aware that some time ago in Yobe State also, a governor also said, I can no longer carry this borrowed rope when I've been described as a chief security officer, when I cannot command the list of the lowest member in the police force and all that. So, like I said, it's an issue. And why do we have that kind of situation? You know, where you expect the government to deliver on security, yet it does not have power to actually, you know, command the security system in a way that we gender that security situation that we all aspire to have. It is because of the Nigerian factor. We have canvassed. I am one apostle that has said, let us have state policing. Let us have state policing. But people look at the very parochial.
That some governors could exploit it.
No, what is it that governor can have not exploited in this country?
Okay, well, we'll also talk about exploitation of the system after we take this break. And at that point in time, Mahmoud here will get a chance to also react to some of these issues, specifically staying with insecurity during elections in Nigeria. We're back shortly, everyone. Stay with us.
TMI, every opinion counts.
And now time to quickly wrap it up on this discussion this morning, one that borders on having violence-free election, particularly beginning with the one scheduled for Edo State come 19th of September 2020. Let me turn to Ahmed again now. Let's talk about what has become more like a tradition. In the build-up to elections like this, you hear security agencies, particularly the police, saying we have to mop up arms, which is an exercise that is standard, which is the ideal thing to do. But has it become some ritual, or has it made a difference for the better overall?
Well, I'm not able to speak on behalf of the police force.
Of course.
But we know that there are a lot of small arms in circulation. And they are usually used at times like this to create an atmosphere of fear.
All right.
Now, having said that, let me quickly address what Honorable Friday said. The PDP as a party, prior to the...
Now, are we talking party again, or we're talking...
No, I need to... he spoke about it. You spoke to him at length. Every time I want to talk, you interject. But you people should let me... I cannot be here and the figurehead. Allow me to talk. He spoke at length, and he said Obaseki moved to PDP. PDP, before Obaseki moved, was the one that was saying Obaseki has not delivered the dividends of democracy. That is the reason for the violence that we are seeing as a run-up to this election. PDP spent 3 years telling Obaseki he has done nothing. Now they have to defend him as a candidate. That is the reason for the violence that we are witnessing. The reason for the violence that we are witnessing is they have a candidate that cannot come out and show the Edo people what he has done with his mandate. That is the reason for the violence. Because when you have nothing to show, you resort to force of arms. He was also trying to explain in a cunning way how the person that is the chief security officer is also not responsible for the violence that is being perpetrated. He is responsible. The buck stops at his table. He came out clearly and told Edo people that we will meet violence with violence. And he further went and said, I am the deputy governor. He knew. A simple translation of that means that we are above the law. Whatever it is we do, we will get away with it. He came out and said it. These are the reasons why INEC is saying they are afraid there is violence. This is the reason why Edo people are afraid that there will be violence. But should not be instigating violence in any form. These are issues. Let us not be it in any way. The matter of fact is, the government has not provided what it promised, and as a result, it is covering up by using violence to silence the opposition. Look at the newscast that you just brought out. The Yekini is now being... he has been removed. Just a day after he resigned and said, the understanding of this administration to dissenting voice is to return violence. That's what you are seeing in the public now. There is no democratic norms and ethics in the administration of this, in the administration of Edo State.
So going forward, how do we address the tendencies for
what we will need,
especially politicians like yourself?
For politicians like me, if you are in the opposition, you must be given as much chance to ventilate your views. There's nothing wrong with ventilating your views, even if I'm in opposition. Let me say what I want to say. If, my honorable leader here was saying that the governor was booed. The governor is the servant of the people. If the people are not happy with him, they will boo him, and it's their responsibility to let him know that he has failed them. How do they communicate with him if they don't boo him? We are in a democracy, everybody must remember that. And one of the tenets of democracy is opposition. As long as it's verbal opposition, it must be allowed. Look at your colleague Kazim Afebua. Kazim Afebua is a member of the PDP. He has come out clearly to say he cannot support Obaseki because Obaseki has failed Okula. If he's in the same party with Obaseki, he cannot campaign.
But
and the reason he cannot do that is this same violence.
That's a bit narrow. No, somebody can also come from Ekpoma tomorrow and say, I'm not voting for him because yes,
there were gunshots in Okpila. The youth of Okpila were attacked by the police on the convoy of Governor Obaseki. That is violence that we are talking about.
But that was speaking for one end.
No, Google it. The people of Okpila were arrested. We met with their leaders. Their leader was kept in prison for 3 months over opposition. They have created an atmosphere of fear and violence. Let us speak truth to power and tell them that it is inconceivable that Edo State will be under the force of a jackboot at this time. We are in a democracy. We must understand that the practice and performance of democracy is performance. You should be able to show what you've done to the Edo people. You should be able to call them and invite them that, look, this is what I've done and this is what I can do further. That's not what we are hearing. What we are hearing is we will meet violence with violence.
Okay, so you made the point that politicians must ensure that opposition is given latitude to also
ventilate.
As long as that doesn't translate to conflict and violence.
Yes.
So as we wrap it up now, Honorable Friday Ogirahi, last words as to what politicians must do, whether you are the governor or not, because people have to be held accountable. Yeah. And for those who are vying to become governor of Edo State, I mean, you have a number of political parties now interested in that office. They must show exemplary leadership going forward, especially as far as violence during elections is concerned.
Okay, well, first, you know, my very good brother here, he will never cease to amuse me. He is very clever with avoiding the questions put to him to start discussing politics. You know, the point is that if we politicize this issue, we will never make a headway. You know, I have tried so much not to trade blames. Because if you actually want to go into blame trading, you will find that you cannot find a cent among the lots. In 2016, we preceded the primaries of the APC. Are you not aware in this country, in this state, that the deputy governor's campaign team, the then deputy governor, Dr. Ebirawo Dubu, campaign team was attacked in Auchi. Was it PDP that did that one? A police officer lost an eye because of that. And subsequently, it's on record too, that the government of the day, led by Commander Adam Oshobole, paid 10 million naira as compensation for that devilish act. So, if we trade blame, like I said, we will never be able to make a headway. But it's about looking at the matter and addressing it holistically.
So how do we address it?
Let me tell you again. You mentioned the issue of arm mopping and the rest of them.
Yes.
You don't need to be a specialist in security matters to know that from experience, as we speak now, there are merchants of violence who wait for election time to make their money. And who patronizing them? Politicians. There are different groups that are even getting more patronage than the actual voter that we ought to reach out to. They are the ones that are being encouraged, you know, who give them budget for security, and they are being encouraged to go buy arms and what have you.
So in conclusion,
so when we talk about people talking about meeting violence with violence, what is the first violence that is going to be met with violence? When people are instigating violence, when people are encouraging human beings who want to be human beings, and they are calling themselves tigers and animals. So what I'm telling you,
in 30 seconds,
you mention ritual just now. Enough of these holy rituals. They have become rituals every election there. You see, next day we are calling stakeholders. This one will not solve the problem.
So
when we solve the problem, we have had series of commission be set up to deal with this issue, and they have come up with a white paper, they have recommendation on that. There's a letter have an electoral tribunal. No, sorry, election offences tribunal.
Different from the traditional courts.
Different from the tribunal. Whereby, if you commit electoral offence on that day, be it carrying a gun, be it trying to induce voter with money, because that's another issue entirely. You will be charged and taken before the electoral offences tribunal.
Incidentally,
so these are the institutional measures which we can do
put in place.
Otherwise, personal interest will continue to override what
incidentally, that's the much we can take here. And again, that personal interest is what we've closed because of time. This is a continuous discussion.
I was just brought here as a figure.
No, you worry.
No, yes, I was just brought here. You know, they said, ask you to put that here. Only ask me.
Please, gentlemen, election is a number of weeks away. These are issues we are going to always discuss, because it is about not just the people running for the office, but of course for those who are also going to vote. So it's about the Edo people overall. That's the point. So we're always going to be back here, and of course on other programs to talk about this. Ahmed made reference to Prince Kazim Afegwa just a while ago. Efforts were made. I mean, I made efforts to reach out to him yesterday, but I'm sure it wasn't disposed to coming for the program because of a tight schedule that he has outside of town. Hopefully, in the days ahead, we will be able to get him on the program as well to lend his voice to many of these very salient issues. Gentlemen, Ahmed Mahmoud and Friday Ogirahi, thank you so much for making our time.
Thank you.
To come this morning. We appreciate that. We hope you have a great day ahead of you.
Thank you very much.
We also want to thank everyone who made our time to watch the program today. Remember, we're live on all of our socials, and you can always catch up with us right there. Our coverage of on ITV continues. Remember that the views of all of our guests are their respective opinions. I'm Wiyag Mofwegwe. Have a productive day ahead.